Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all my Vernusylph Yugioh deck profile for August 2022. This is one of the new decks that we got from the latest Yu-Gi-Oh booster set. It's an Earth Fairy deck that focuses on basically special summoning a bunch of different Earth monsters from the graveyard with the help of discarding the different Vernusylph monsters and cards. They have a good number of monsters and spells and traps introduced in this booster set, and we'll just be getting more for the deck with the release of Darkwing Blast in October as well. To add to its playstyle, I went for more of a generic Vernusylph deck for this lineup. I've seen people mix it with Madolches, Earth Machines, just pretty generic Earth stuff to use with this deck that doesn't really lock you down to much aside from being able to just special summon Earth monsters for the rest of the turn. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Vernusylph monsters, I am running 3 Vernusylph of the Flourishing Hills. Vernusylph monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. You can discard this card and one monster or Vernusylph card to add one Vernusylph card from your deck to your hand, except for Vernusylph of the Flourishing Hills. Then you can special summon one Earth monster from your graveyard. Also, you cannot special summon or activate non-Earth monster effects for the rest of this turn. You can only use this effect of Vernusylph of the Flourishing Hills once per turn. The special summon really does help to give us more of a layout of different generic Earth monsters we want to run in the deck along with the Vernusylph monsters for more of the generic playstyle and for more of a setup and lockdown type of play. And just being able to make it so your other Vernusylph monsters cannot be destroyed by card effects or destroyed by card effects really helps with the one spell card, which I'll get to in just a bit, that you run in the deck also. For the other level 4 Vernusylph monster, I also run 3 Vernusylph of the Awakening Forest. You can discard this card and one monster or Vernusylph card. Send from your deck to the graveyard one Earth monster that can be normal summon or set. Then you can special summon one Earth monster from your graveyard with a different card name than that monster. Also, you cannot activate non-Earth monster effects for the rest of this turn. And you can target one Vernusylph monster you control in attack position, and its attack becomes double until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect of Vernusylph of the Awakening Forest once per turn. This is more of the power-up setup option for your graveyard, but also being able to double the attack of your Vernusylph monsters gives them more of an attack boost for you to then hit into your opponent with their buffed up attack. I also run 3 Vernusylph of the Thawing Mountains. You can discard this card and one monster or Vernusylph card to draw one card. Then you can special summon one Earth monster from your graveyard. Also, you cannot activate non-Earth monster effects for the rest of this turn. You can activate one Vernusylph monster you control, and it can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. And you can only use each effect of Vernusylph of the Thawing Mountains once per turn. So this is another one of your go-to setup plays. Being able to use each and every one gives you the special summon power, the attack doubling, and then the fact that your Vernusylph of the Thawing Mountains can attack twice means you have a strengthened Vernusylph monster on the field to hit pretty hard into your opponent. With the final Vernusylph monster that we run being 3 of the Vernusylph of the Flowering Fields, your opponent cannot target Vernusylph monsters you control with card effects. You can discard this card and one monster or Vernusylph card to add one Earth monster from your graveyard to your hand, except for Vernusylph of the Flowering Fields. And then you can special summon one Earth monster from your graveyard. Also, you cannot activate non-Earth monster effects for the rest of this turn. You can only use each effect of the Flowering Fields once per turn. More setup and recycle from the graveyard, but I would say 3 ofs for all of them so you can get a good number of different ones in your hand to use with each play. And some of these spell and traps allow us for more setup and usage of the many different generic Earth monsters in the deck along with the Vernusylph monsters. For more of the generic Earth monsters that I run, I'm also running 3 Tenyi Spirit Adhara. If you control no effect monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. That's the main play we go off of for the special summon of Adhara on the field. Also, just being a level 1 Earth tuner gives us more of a special summon option with the other Vernusylph Earth monsters to get out some synchro monsters that are Earth from our extra deck onto the field. And more of the lockdown part of the deck, I run 3 Barrier Statue of the Drought, being an Earth monster that can be special summoned onto the field, and then just locking your opponent into Earth monsters can really shut down a lot of different plays they may want to do with their own deck, but still leaving it so you can special summon a good majority of Earth monsters yourself from the extra deck, and with the majority of them all being Earth in your main deck as well. With the final spots for the Earth monsters that I run in the deck, just being 3 Mathematician, this can help to set up different Earth monsters in our graveyard for us to then special summon off of the Vernusylph cards that, specify you send an Earth monster, but at least having that other target to send, and then giving you an additional draw when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard. with the last monsters that I run in the main deck being 2 Goblinberg and 1 Dino Wrestler Pankratops. The Pankratops special summon as another Earth monster option, and the Goblinberg for being able to just set up more of a presence on the field with its card effect itself. Being able to special summon just 1 Earth monster from your graveyard means that you can just summon Pankratops back onto the field thanks to that play, and then use its own attack power as some of the boosts you can use, which we'll get to when we get to the spell lineup, and other plays as well. And that can definitely come in handy with the spell lineup, which we are running 3 of the Vernusylph Corolla. With this card, all Earth monsters you control are also treated as Vernusylph monsters. Once per turn, if you would discard a Vernusylph monster and 1 card to activate the effect of a Vernusylph monster in your hand, you can discard only that Vernusylph monster instead. So this is a definite 3 of, because you want this set up as quickly as possible, being able to then have that option for this card to add a Vernusylph card. It's searchable off of the Flourishing Hills, so you want to get this spell into your hand as quickly as you can, because then you don't have to minus yourself as much, just being able to discard that 1 Vernusylph card alone for their own effects to activate. And also for the fact that all your other Earth monsters in the deck get treated as Vernusylph cards if you were to special summon it out, and having your Pankratops count as a Vernusylph card, meaning you can use the other Vernusylph effects on that monster to make it double its attack, and then also just be able to swing into your opponent because of it multiple times, depending on what Vernusylph monsters you set up on the field. For more extra deck resources, I also run 2 Scapegoats, just an activation at the end of your opponent's turn, giving you 4 tokens on the field to then use those tokens to go into some extra deck monsters, especially cards like Mrs. Radiant, to power up the different Vernusylph monsters we have on the field for the added boost. You do discard a lot of Earth monsters and set them up in the graveyard, so for more recycle power, I run 2 Pot of Avarice, just for a way to add those cards back to your hand for you to reuse off of the draw after they go back into the deck. And lastly, I run 1 Transmodify, 1 Monster Reborn, and 1 Call by the Grave for the rest of the spell lineup. The Transmodify works mostly with the Vernusylphs being level 3 fairy monsters for your Flowering Fields and your Thawing Mountains, so being able to summon out your Vernusylph of the Awakening Forest and Flourishing Hill off of both of those monsters is why I like just teching in the 1 Transmodify because of it. And for the traps, I am running 3 Vernusylph and the Flower Buds. Earth, you target face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of Earth monsters you control with different names, and that were special summoned from the graveyard. Return Earth monsters you control to the hand equal to the number of targets, and if you do, return at least 1 card to the hand. Return the targeted cards to the hand. You go and activate 1 Vernusylph of the Flowering Buds. So just a way to get rid of your opponent's cards on the field by returning your own Vernusylph monsters back to your hand as well, to then reuse for their own discard plays over again after that turn is done. With the last of the traps being 3 Vernusylph in the Changing Seasons. You target 1 Vernusylph monster in your graveyard, add to your hand, or special summon it, and during your opponent's turn, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, if you have no cards in your hand, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon as many Vernusylph monsters as possible with different names from your graveyard, but return them to the hand during the end phase. You can only use each effect of Vernusylph in the Changing Seasons once per turn. So this can really help just as a recovery card option against your opponent, giving you those Vernusylph cards back into your hand after special summoning them onto the field. If you don't use them for an extra deck resource, you can at least have them go back into your hand for you to use the following turn for their own discard plays. So it really does help as more of a late game card to rely on, giving you the play initially with your Vernusylph in the graveyard to add to your hand of its own play, and then banishing it from the graveyard for more recycled plays. As for the extra deck, we went for more of an Earth generic lineup. I run 2 Nightmare Cerberus. Now, the big thing is you can special summon non-Earth monsters. You just can't activate their effects the turn you activate your own Vernusylph cards. I do run a few Dark monsters for the Link lineup, but just 2 of the Nightmare Cerberus. The fact that this card's attack can be doubled and attack twice when it's counted as a Vernusylph monster on the field, thanks to cards like Vernusylph Corolla, makes it all the easier to use, and setting up other Earth monsters in our graveyard off of its discard cost as well. For more of the attack boost, I run 2 Mrs. Radiant for the Scapegoat play, just getting the 4 Scapegoat tokens on the end of your opponent's turn, using all 4 of them to make 2 Mrs. Radiants on the field, giving all your monsters a 1000 attack point boost. And I also run the 1 Cross Sheep for the other extra deck monsters we run. This is definitely useful to set up and then special summon those other extra deck monsters to the arrows it points to. And then for the generic lineup, I run 1 Underclock Taker, 1 Barricade Board Blocker, and 1 Nightmare Unicorn. They're non-Earth monsters, but still, I would say, needed at times when going up against specific cards your opponent may have. And for the Synchro monsters, I run 1 Naturia Beast, 1 Naturia Barkion, 1 Scrap Dragon, and 1 Goyo Guardian, all Earth attribute monsters that can activate their effects the turn they're summoned in this deck. I make Barkion by using the level 1 tuner, which is the Tenyi Adhara, along with a level 4 monster to then go into Beast, and then having the additional Adhara to special summon back onto the graveyard can go into Beast, but most of the time just having Beast and Barkion, depending on what your opponent may have, on the field. Goyo Guardian to take my opponent's own resources, and those resources I take with its own card effect turns them into Vernusylph monsters as well, as long as I have the spell on the field, and Scrap Dragon just for a more destruction play setup. With the last of the extra deck just being 1 Malaya of the Trees, 1 Gaga Cowboy, and 1 additional Baguska for the different rank up plays that you can do in the deck. For the Xyz monsters, Baguska being more control and Cowboy being more of a burn option for these monsters. As for the go-to plays in the deck, setting up the graveyard for the special summon is really what it all comes down to. If you can get your Vernusylph of the Flourishing Hills set up in the graveyard much more faster with another discard cost to give you that monster, and then search out your main go-to spell, it all comes down to having the additional Vernusylph cards in your hand to use, discarding only that card since you have Corolla set up on the field. For this play, discarding this card to the graveyard, and then also just being able to set up those other cards from your graveyard depending on the Vernusylph monster you may have in your hand. This spell card is very, very important just to cut down on your cost for each one of your cards, but then after that setup, you have the special summon plays to either lock your opponent down with the specific monster you have, or the particular boss monster to summon out to then boost up with the power of your other Vernusylph cards. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like I said, this is more of a generic build just to focus on learning the playstyle of the Vernusylph monsters. We definitely will be getting more support in the Darkwing Blast booster set to add to the deck, and I may even try mixing around some other cards with the Vernusylphs. Like I said, Earth Machine and Madolche both work very, very well for the deck as well, and something to consider. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.